Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. My name's Ethan Bernard. In today's video, I'm making a guide for you guys about the PC system requirements for Anthem. Now, I made a previous video talking about system requirements, but those system requirements were specifically for the alpha, and since then, BioWare and EA have actually released the full system requirements for Anthem's retail launch. So the requirements I'm about to read and explain to you are all for the full game, and these are going to be the final system requirements we actually find out. So starting off, let's go over the minimum requirements for Anthem. It says OS 64-bit Windows 10. I'm not sure if this game will run on Windows 7 or not. I don't know if anyone's really tested it yet. I'm sure some people have in the alpha, and we'll see soon as Anthem VIP demo releases here in a couple weeks. It says you need a 64-bit copy of Windows 10. For the CPU, it recommends an Intel Core i5-3570 or the AMD FX6350. Essentially, the i5-3570 is a quad-core 3.4 GHz base clock processor from Intel, and the FX6350 is a hexa-core 3.9 GHz base clock from AMD. If you guys already have a PC to play Anthem on, if you built it anytime recently, you should have these specs covered. I mean, the 3570 released in 2012, and we're already in 2019. So if you're still not up to spec with that stuff, maybe it's time for an upgrade. Now, if you guys are planning on building a PC for Anthem, I always recommend Intel because you are paying a little bit more, but you're getting a more reliable card that won't usually overheat as much, and the longevity is usually a lot better than AMD processors. Alright, they also recommend 8 GB of RAM. That's pretty standard. Honestly, like I said, if you previously built a gaming PC or if you have a gaming PC at all, 8 GB of RAM should be no big deal at all. I know most people are running at least 16 at this point. For the GPU, they recommend the NVIDIA GTX 760 for the minimum spec or the AMD Radeon 7970, which honestly, these are like 2 GB cards, guys. The GTX 760 is a 2 GB GDDR5 NVIDIA card, and the Radeon 7970 is a 3 GB GDDR5 from AMD. Honestly, if you guys have a 7 series card, 8 series card, 9 series card, you'll be fine to play Anthem. It might not be at a very good frame rate, depending on the resolution you're playing at. I wouldn't go over 1080p with something like a 7 series card or an 8 series card even, but you should be good to go. They recommend 50 GB of free hard drive space, but honestly guys, after playing the alpha, I highly recommend an SSD for Anthem. Alright, there's not a lot of loading screens, but the loading times are a bit long because I was playing on a hard drive, so make sure you get that SSD in there if you guys have one. Clear some space out on the SSD. Anthem's going to be a really good game, and it'll definitely be worth it for the loading times. And they have DirectX 11, which honestly shouldn't be a big deal. Now, moving on to the recommended PC specifications. The operating system recommended is a 64-bit copy of Windows 10. The CPU they recommend is the Intel Core i7-4790. Now, this is actually, like I said, a pretty standard processor. This is a quad-core 3.6 GHz base clock from Intel, and the AMD Ryzen 3 1300X is the AMD equivalent they recommend, which again is a quad-core 3.5 GHz base clock from AMD. These, if you, like I said, and I'm going to reiterate this a lot, if you built a PC for gaming recently, you should have this well covered. And if you're planning on building a PC, get one of the recent i7s like the 7700K, that's the one I use. You can get the 8700K. All those are great processors for Anthem, and you shouldn't have any issue with it at all. Now, they recommend 16 GB of RAM. This is pretty standard at this point for recent gaming computers. There's not much to say about that. I've got 32 GB in my computer because I do a lot of multitasking, but you don't need that. At this point, that is basically overkill. For the GPU, they recommend the NVIDIA GTX 1060, which is a 3 GB card. However, this comes in a 3 GB and a 6 GB variant. If you guys already have a 1060 of any kind, you're good to go. But if you're planning on building a PC, I do recommend the 6 GB version because it uses GDDR5X, which is a faster version of the memory, and it's a lot more memory for you to work with, especially at 1080p. So if you guys are still playing games at 1080p, and you are planning on building a computer, if you're looking for a budget card, go with the 1060. It's a great card. It's going to hold up for a while, and I feel like it's kind of the modern version of the 970, which is kind of the previous powerhouse from NVIDIA. The AMD equivalent they recommend is the AMD RX 480, which is a 4GB GDDR5 card from AMD. Not much to say there. It runs slower than the 1060, but it has 1GB more than the 3GB model, so those two kind of even out. But like I said, if you guys are planning on building a budget PC for Anthem, I do recommend the NVIDIA GTX 1060 6GB variant, as that'll kind of be a very solid card, considering they recommend at least 4GB of GPU RAM, but the 3GB 1060 should handle the game just fine. Once again, they recommend 50GB of free hard drive space. I cannot stress enough, if you guys can manage to do it, fit Anthem on your SSD. It's going to be one of those games that's going to have a pretty decent loading time if you don't manage to get it on the SSD because of how big the world is. And loading times in games like that are always nice to have as low as possible. And as always, DirectX 11, yada yada yada, you guys get it. Leave your PC specs in the comments and I'll give you guys my recommendations and advice on what you should do. I'm going to have a guide out here in the next couple weeks. If you're planning on building a PC for Anthem or any other games coming out this year in 2019, I'm going to make a budget build and a premium build that I'm going to recommend you guys to build for these games, or I'll give you also some good pre-built recommendations because I know a lot of people don't even want to bother with building their own. Anyway guys, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like on it and subscribe to the channel. I'm giving away a copy of Anthem. You can enter that giveaway in the description down below or in the link in the pinned comment. Like the video if you liked it, you know what to do if you didn't. Thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you in the next one.
Hey naysayers, how y'all been? It's been a minute, but I'm in it to win, and I ain't finished. This is the starting gun, and I'ma run it to the front until I'm #1, son. This is a rhythmic defibrillation, innovative old school to thrill the nation. I've been patiently waiting and building steam, but I'm back with the